Hey folks, Mark here. I want to talk today about the limits, the standards, and the prohibitions that cops have. That these are things they have to operate within. Now, every time I mention this, there's always somebody, oh, well, they always do. They break the law. They do this other stuff. And it's like, no, shut up. Just, yes, there are exceptions. There are times where the cops do break the law. The cops, do stuff that they know is just flat out wrong. I acknowledge that. I will even go so far as to say I know of incidents where cops actually did murder people. Okay? Now, surprise, surprise, there's tends to be another side of that story. And generally speaking, I can tell you right here, right now, that one of the best ways to get murdered by cops is number one, be involved with a crazy woman that, a love triangle. It just doesn't quite work out. I don't know if that showed up, but we just had a cat fly up there. But the other way, and equally, or actually probably more common, is be a drug dealer who doesn't pay his bribes. Okay? You want to get murdered by the cops? Yeah, that's a good way to do it. Corrupt cops, etc. And I mean, most of the time when it comes to getting murdered by the cops, you're doing something wrong, and they're doing something wrong. So, so I'm not saying this doesn't happen, but what I'm saying is that with the way things are right now, it's way, way easier for a cop to bend the rules rather than break them. Okay, so if you understand how cops play, how the game is played, and how cops have to operate within these limits, otherwise the case is going to get thrown out of court. It's time to have a chill pill, right? There's a lot that's involved in what I call tangoing with the cops, but the number one thing is acquaint yourselves with what cops need to arrest you. Okay? For example, they need an admission of guilt. Okay? That's a real common shorthand thing. They talk to you, they say something, you say something, and they go, he admitted guilt. Now, a lot of times this is baked into the type of questions that they're asking you. And, spend some time looking into these questions that I mentioned in another video, the read technique, but also watch for them fishing for you admitting that you did something illegal. Okay. That is the easiest way, and it's not, they don't have to beat you, they don't have to do, trick you, right? They don't, but, I mean, and they do it. I make no mistake that they do it. But most of the time, they just ask certain questions that they know how to spin the answer. Okay? So, a lot of times, people admit to doing something illegal, right? They don't think it's illegal, or, the truth is, and this is way more common, is they'll do something that, she's coming back again. Let's see if we can get it. Yep, there she goes. A lot of times people, I talked about the crime versus illegal. Well, a lot of times people do illegal things, and it's really easy to get them to admit that they're doing it. Okay. So, they'll ask you, like, what was I smoking? What were you smoking? And the guy, no, a little weed, because guy's thinking it's not illegal, which it may or may not be in the state, but, guess what? Smoking weed and driving a car, yeah, that's illegal. Okay. I don't think it's really smart for people to get stoned and then walk out into the public, because it's a public intoxication, right? Now, their attitude is, well, I'm not doing anything wrong, so why should I worry about admitting it? Well, you actually are doing something wrong. So a big part of, actually before we worry about, not getting trapped by these questions, let's start by not doing stuff that is illegal. Okay? Fine, you want to smoke dope? You want to get so blasted you're crawling on your lips? I don't care. Go ahead and do it in your home or in a place where you're not out and about in public. Public intoxication is illegal. Okay, they can do something. And if you admit to being intoxicated, right, you can, or you admit that you participated in this, right? Like when the cop asks a drunk, have you been drinking tonight? And the guy goes, oh, I've only had one beer, and he can't see straight. Yeah. They're going to build on that. And this isn't even bending the rules yet. This is just how they operate normally. And there's going to be certain questions that they will ask that if you lie, they're going to know it. And, if they're smelling beer breath, have you been drinking? No, sir, not me. No. Right. Or you say, yeah, I only had one beer. This is a thing of, like, never claim that you only had one beer at a restaurant unless you have the receipt with you. Okay? I actually, have you been drinking? I'm not going to lie. I'm going to, yeah. Here's the receipt. I only had one beer. Okay? That shuts down him building the case that you're drunk. There's also other stuff that, it's not just what the cop builds a case with. It's him building the case in such a way that your lawyer can't break it. Okay? Like, do you give permission to the cops to search you or your car? No. Right? And that's one of those little issues of the, am I being detained, that I have such problems with. But it's like, if you're not giving a cop a reason to search and he does it, if you mention to him, like, okay, let's just find out what's going on. Number one, am I being detained? Number two, I don't give you permission to search myself or my car. Okay? You can say that. You can legitimately say that. Now, you won't stop him from searching the car if he's going to do it. He's going to do it anyway. Okay? If he's that much of an asshole and he thinks you're doing something, but now as he's building the case, you're counter building. And that's a game that is way beyond this particular topic. But I want you to understand that these rules that he has to operate in, once you know him, once you have a general idea about him, it's like the cop that I told in another video where I had a gun pointed at me by the cop, and the cop asked, did you hit him? Now, I happen to know about use of force and scaling force, and that a hit in the police way of looking at it is called hard hands, and that's a higher level of force. So when the cop asked me, did you hit him? Okay, he was asking me if I had used a higher level of force than I could have, should have, that I could be prosecuted. Well, that's why my answer was I used a prescribed takedown to control him without injury. Okay, that shut down that line of thinking, or that line of questioning of, yeah, don't try and set me up to admit that I beat on this dude. Okay, and that is such that when you look at the questions she's asking and you consider them, you can think, okay, will my answer be or easily interpreted as an admission of guilt? Okay. That's where a lot of people get in trouble, because they say something thinking, that innocent question, they're saying, not really. But, the thing is, if the cop starts pushing it, not here, not now, not you, I said that before, Recognize that if you know how to play this game, if you know his standards that he has to meet, you can keep him from getting what he needs to arrest and prosecute you. And that is not resisting arrest. That's not being a smartass. That's not, that is like playing chess, or as I'll talk about in another video, tangoing. He'll ask these questions, and either you can, answer in a way that will be good for you, or you can refuse to answer that question. It's like, rephrase that question. Okay, because that's a trap. And I'm not going to answer a trap. And if he insists, then it's like, it's time for my attorney to be present. And that is where a lot of people screw up, because they don't know. Well, if they do know the law, they don't care, and they've been doing stupid stuff, which seriously undermines your ability. Okay. So, when the cop's asking you questions and you've done the dumb, right, recognize he's building a case against you. Okay? So maybe at that time, it's like, what, I'd feel more comfortable answering these questions in the presence of my attorney. Okay? And they have to respect that. Now, they can try and work around that. They can weasel around it. One of the common ways I've heard about is the cops will discuss the case in front of you. Well, this other guy said that, right? And people go, no. That's not what happened. Well, this is a voluntary disclosure. And for example, if you invoke your Fifth Amendment, right, or your right to counsel to be present, and then you continue to talk, right, that's you waiving your right, even though you said it. You've now acknowledged it. So know how they work, how they have to work. Like, okay, fine, I'd like to finish this statement in presence of my attorney. Right? That legally shuts them down. Okay? If they get pushy about it, right? If they're like, "No, you better tell us what happened right now," after you've invoked your fifth, and you actually have to invoke your fifth, right? You have to come out and clearly communicate, otherwise they'll weasel around it. But even if you come out and say it, if they keep on weaseling, that's not the time to argue with the cop. Not here, not now, not you. That's the time to okay, my lawyer's going to have fun with this one. You don't say that. Just, whatever. Don't be baited by the cops. Okay? And a lot of the stuff that they do, again, it's not breaking the law, but they do know how to bend it, and they won't get in trouble for bending it nearly as much as they'll get in trouble for breaking it. So you have to watch for that bend. Well, the cool thing about them bending the law is you can kind of bend it back, right? So we'll talk more about the tango, but just as a general idea, look into, and I mean, a good way to do this is find experts who can tell you about this, or talk to cops. It's like, hey, what do you how do you guys do this? What do you need? And I mean, they'll tell you a lot of good stuff, and keep it in mind when you're dealing with cops. Like I said, don't fail the personality test. Well, pre to that, don't do dumb shit that'll get you that'll bring you to the attention of the cops and make you vulnerable to arrest. Okay, so yeah, you're driving in a car smoking a joint. Guess what? That's illegal. Well, yeah, but dope's legal. Yeah, but driving while stoned isn't. Learn the law. Understand that. Then watch for the cops setting you up. Okay? Another thing, I told you about the cops knowing that it is typical that, you look down at the speedometer when the lights go on. Okay? I've been pulled over while driving under the speed limit. Right? And I knew the cop was on a fishing expedition. But knowing he was on a fishing expedition, I also knew the kind of questions he was looking for. He was kind of checking me out to see. And I mean, that's part of it. Get used to it. It happens. But if you know how to answer, you don't give him reasons to take it up to the next level. So again, learn how they operate, what they need to build a case, and like I said, the odds are they won't break the rules unless you've been a really bad boy. But do expect the rules to get bent.